Good afternoon. I'm Joel Franklin. In our new webcast series, Deborah Ford will present strategies and resources that you can use tomorrow. We'll explore 4 ways to strengthen diversity in your library program. Whether you're a school or public librarian, we hope today's brief webcast will inform, affirm, and remind you about the impact you can have as a librarian on all of your patrons, especially your children and teens. Please join our conversation on Twitter. You can tweet us at JR Library Guild and use the hashtag JLGWebinars. If you have any questions or comments, you can send those in at any time via the red Q&A box. Today's webcast addresses a hashtag for diverse books that launch an enthusiasm for inclusion, especially in the library. So, how diverse is your library?
The hashtag We Need Diverse Books did indeed launch a campaign of awareness for librarians around the world, and it makes perfect sense. If we work with diverse students and patrons, shouldn't our teaching and our presentation strategies, our programs, our literature collection, shouldn't that be a reflection of our community and beyond? But what is diversity? Is it race, gender, ethnicity, ability, culture? Actually, it's all of those things and more. And though we don't have time today to delve into every area, my hope is that you'll continue to be more aware of your choices and the power you have to make a difference in the life of every person who comes into your library. In today's webcast, we'll look at 4 ways to strengthen diversity in your library program, from your collection to your programming and to your teaching and presentation strategies to marketing. We're going to talk about some ideas that you literally can use tomorrow. So the first one we want to talk about is your collection. So your collection, of course, can strengthen your library program with diversity. And so we're talking mostly about books, but also about your ebooks and your audiobooks and your videos as well. But I can't tell you how just this morning, I saw an article on CNN, and the headline was 5 teens sentenced to read diverse books for vandalism charges. So this happened in Ashburn, Virginia, and 5 teens painted swastikas, obscenities, and the phrase white power on a colored school that was established in 1892. And so the judge, for their punishment, gave them book reports every month for the next 12 months. So they have to read things like To Kill a Mockingbird, Things Fall Apart, Night. They also have to go to the United States Holocaust Museum and the American History Museum. They have to write a research paper about how their vandalism affected the African American community. The judge said, "There's so many things I've learned about war and about discrimination from books." She hopes the teens will learn too. They need to open their eyes to what awful things people have done in the world in the names of gender, race, and religion. Books are the best way to combat that. So right out of the headlines this morning. But the hard thing about your collection and diversity is you can't just run a collection report and see if your collection is diverse. It can tell you that your science books are 22 years old and you should weed them. It might tell you you have X number of books in a particular number, but for the most part, it's not going to tell you if you have enough diverse books for your particular population. You have to dig down a little bit deeper and do things like do an advanced search and look for handicaps, or look for Jewish, or look for African American, or another culture, or another race, another gender. Lots of people have told me that when they've done genreification of their libraries, they have found that, whoops, it's not very diverse. So if you're doing that, that's another good way to look at it. So do some specific searches and see if you can find ways to improve your collection. Look for things like awards. You can do searches for that in your catalog. Do you have the award winners from, say, the Sidney Taylor, which is books that address Jewish authors, illustrators, and that culture? There's the Asian Pacific Award, which is given by the Asian Pacific Association of Librarians. I think I got that right. There's the Purell Prey. There's the Coretta Scott King. There's the Snyder Family Award for handicaps. So look at all those different kinds of awards and see how many you have. And then you want to jump right into your to new books. So let's look at some new books that are coming that will address the diversity issues that we have. So I just read this two weekends ago. It's coming, it's coming. This is a debut novel by E.B. Zaboy, and it's called American Street. And I read this book, I read the first page, and my eyeballs just kind of went, whoa. Here's the first paragraph. If only I could break the glass separating me and Manman with my thoughts alone. On one side of the glass doors are the long lines of people with their photos and papers that prove that they belong here in America, that they are allowed to taste a bit of this free air. On the other side is me, pressing my forehead against the thick see-through wall. My shoulder hurts from the weight of the carry-on bag. I refuse to put it down for fear that they will take it away too. Maman, I whisper to the glass, hoping that my voice will ease through, fly above all those people's heads, travel on a plane back to New York, and reach her. So what's happened is that Fabiola has come from Haiti with her mother, and her mother is detained and is going to be deported while she's being sent on to Detroit. I mean, literally, it's like right out of the news. My mouth just fell open. I think E.B. must be psychic or something, but absolutely a must-read. Another book that's very good for this topic that we have coming out in the spring, another young adult book, is 442, and it's about the Japanese-American first-generation boys who joined the military during World War II to prove that they were Americans, that they loved America. Just because they had a Japanese heritage and because they were born in the United States didn't make any difference. And you know about the Japanese internment camps. And so this is a really important book, I think, for our kids to read and to know that that these boys took up the flag, literally, even though they were sent away to internment camps because they looked like the enemy. But to prove that they weren't, they joined the armed forces. When we started the We Need Diverse Books program, a company formed, a nonprofit, We Need Diverse Books. And so this spring there's a new book edited by Ellen O., one of our favorite writers, who compiled these stories written by diverse authors and illustrators. So you'll see some of your favorite people like Newbery winner Kwame Alexander, Tim Federle, Meg Medina, Jacqueline Woodson, Tim Tingle, very diverse cast of authors in this, and a great middle grade read where your kids can get a flavor of the culture as well as read a diverse author. Many of you probably have seen the movie. Who's seen the movie? Yeah. So this is Margot Lee Shetterly's debut as a middle grade author. And bless her heart, the woman is very smart. I mean, first of all, she's a mathematician. She's a writer. And get this, she knew these women from this story. She is a recipient of the Virginia Foundation of the Humanities Grant. So for her research in the history of women in computing. And I'm not really a math person, but I get this book, and I just am astounded that these women, who they once called computers in World War II, that was, what is your job? Oh, I'm a computer. Your kids will be astounded if they haven't seen the movie. But it starts back in World War II when there weren't enough men to do the jobs, and so they hired women. And the African-American women, the black women, were put in a separate building and did the work, and it goes all the way through to John Glenn and Neil Armstrong and the landing on the moon and all those kinds of things. It just is a fascinating read. So I hope everybody gets this book. I'd get it elementary, middle, and high school because it just was really good. Dara Palmer's Major Drama is actually from last winter, but it was so appropriate for today that I wanted to bring this book back to your attention. It's also in our new category, which is coming in the fall, realistic fiction for middle school. It's about a girl who lives in England, but she's in the 5th grade, but she was adopted from Cambodia, and her sister was adopted from Russia. And there's this animosity between the two. And then there's this whole drama, no pun intended. Dara thinks that she's just a movie star, and that's what she's going to be. So she practices her faces. So when she auditions for a part in The Sound of Music, she's stunned that she doesn't get the part of Maria. What, you don't think a Cambodian can be an Austrian nun? She was so insulted. Well, it turns out that Dara just really doesn't have any acting talent. And so we have that story kind of going on, and then we also have the who am I if I was adopted? Does my family love me? Am I Cambodian? Am I British? And here's this sister who's Russian. So there are a lot of different things going on in this story. For our younger set in the elementary, we have a new book coming in our multicultural. So this is probably a category that if you don't have that, you should add that. It's a pretty new category. This one is poems about amazing Hispanics, and it's people that you know, like Chavez and Belpre, to people that you don't know. And these are all poems celebrating Latinos. So go ahead and get it now because you know you need it. So just get it. And don't wait till April to read it, or Cinco de Mayo, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. Malala. You probably have several books about Malala by now, and you probably cannot keep them on the shelf. And here's another one. We have this in our biography elementary category, but this one is a French import. And School Library Journal said that this work surpasses them. So there you go. It's a gorgeous book, beautifully illustrated, but again, it just will bring home to kids the importance of education and how we so often take our own education for granted, whereas Malala was, there was an assassination attempt on her life just because she thought girls should go to school. Another book from our recent multicultural category was I'm Not a Number, and this is a book about Indigenous children in Canada, where the Indigenous people, there were laws that took them from their parents and put them in a school where their hair was cut, they were given a number, they weren't allowed to speak their language. And I think kids need to know, and this is pretty recent history, so I think kids need to know that these kind of things are going on so they can develop empathy and understand that, one, they have it really better than they think they do, and they should have more feeling for other people. So those are just a few examples of some of the great books that are coming. But in addition to that, there are all kinds of lists all over. So I want you to know about them. We've talked about the diversity awards, but School Library Journal did a diversity issue in 2014, the same year as the hashtag, the same year that ALA did a report about the importance of diversity in the library. So you can go to SLJ and put in diversity issue, and you'll see everything from book list to cross-racial scenes in picture books, how to honor the differences, how one librarian did everyday diversity, etc. There's also a great resource list, so you can type in SLJ resources. It's also in the handout, both online right now. You can just go to the resource book, resource folder, and click the handout, and you'll have a nice little clickable handout. Download it so that you can click through those links. But here we have all kinds of articles, news articles, things from the Hornbook, and then all kinds of recommended sites like the Brown Bookshelf and Gay YA, Diversify YA, and so on. So you can go back and look at those kinds of lists too. And then at Junior Library Guild, we also do categories of themed lists. So you can just go to JLG, go to Awards and List, and then under themed list, you'll see one for multicultural. So you can click there and look at the newest multicultural list. You can also go to Outstanding Book List, and there you'll see things like the Sidney Taylor and the Asian Pacific and other kinds of awards like that. Another way you can keep up with what's going on out in the publication world and the book world and all kinds of things on diversity is you can follow us on Pinterest. And on the Pinterest board, you will see the books that we talked about today, some books that I include in my diversity workshops that I do around the country. You'll see examples of bulletin boards, how other people do diversity, an article. Ooh, yay, I should tell you about this. This is an article that I wrote for Principal Magazine, this Diverse Kids Need Diverse Resources. I wrote it for the Principal Magazine, which is the National Association of Elementary School Principals. So if you're a school librarian, you want to be sure and share that with your principal. There's a link to Multicultural Day. There's a link to the SLJ resources and different roundtables that you can be a member of, and so you can keep up. So I hope those resources will help you too. As part of your collection development strengthening, you want to be sure you're diversifying your own reading. You know, you can't sell something that you don't know very much about. So I want to encourage you to branch out of what you would usually read and read those things as well. The second thing that we can do to strengthen our library program is to look at our programming itself. Now, we often do Black History Month, we do March, Women's History Month, we do April Poetry Month, and so on, when we celebrate some holidays around the world. But there are all kinds of things that you can do every month, not just when it's the special month. So when you make these book lists, don't just hide them. Keep them out. As you do other kinds of reading promotions, make sure that the books that you put out on display are diverse. When you're doing book club activities, think about diversity as part of that. Handicap is a diversity. Back when I was at a middle school, working with middle schools out in San Diego, we had a book club where we were featuring $1 Million Putt. And so as our activity, we blindfolded one of the pair of the parent and child, and we had a putt-putt course. And we had them play putt-putt blindfolded, just like in the book. And ironically, the person who was the best putter was the girl who was actually blind, who gave us the idea to begin with. There are service projects that you can do. I met a lady not too long ago who said she had a diversity club, but she decided that they should not just use it to get to know each other, but they could do something for other people. And so they're going to start looking at different projects where they can make an impact in their community. And then I met another lady who actually was looking for furniture. You'll love this. So she wanted high-top tables and chairs for her library, and she went to the Rotary Club or Lions Club or somebody like that and said, here's what I need. You know, do you want to help support that? And so they made a deal. And so her high schoolers are now tech coaches for the seniors in that club, and they gave money to the library so they could have new furniture. And so those kids are having intergenerational opportunities, and they're learning to be patient with older people, and the older people are learning, what did I do to my phone, and how do I get that back? So I think that's a wonderful way to improve your programming. And while you're doing your programming, look at your invitation list. Who are the people in your neighborhood that you can go and ask? Maybe you're not a diverse community. Maybe you need to go outside of your community to bring diversity in, because that's another area that we need to address, because it may be that your community is very same. And so this way you can bring other people in. I know especially in the elementary world, so many of our elementary schools are full of women. So our kids need to see men. They need to see men readers of all backgrounds and cultures. And so who are those people that you can invite in? Talk to your public library and look at their list. They probably have all kinds of people that you can ask to come to your library. So make sure you're building your public school library connection. And then with your teaching skills, a third way to strengthen diversity is to look at how you teach and how you present, because everybody learns differently. So here's some ways that I want you to think about what you're doing as you're teaching. For example, we have many kids who are English as a second language. And so by turning the captions on when you show a video, they can see the words and hear the words and see a picture, and they can connect the dots much easier. We have kids who have physical handicaps, and maybe they don't hear as well, and maybe their hearing hasn't even been diagnosed yet. So having audio, having video helps them. Some kids just need you to move around the room. So whether you're doing story time or you're doing research, you can keep your kids on task by just moving around. I know in different cultures, in some cultures, everybody talks all at once, and it's perfectly normal, and perhaps it's loud. And they are still right there on task. So until you know that, that's another, maybe that's your homework to find out about how does it work in my neighborhood and in my community. Making compensations for kids who you cannot train. You know you cannot train every person. And I still am humiliated and horrified that as a classroom teacher, I had a kid who always sat with his knee in the seat. And every day he would come in and I would yell at him for not sitting his bottom in the chair. And one day I realized he's so small. When he sits down, his arms and elbows are way up on his desk. He's really uncomfortable. So look at why a kid acts up in story time. Why does a kid act up when you're trying to teach a lesson? And make compensations for those. We had a boy who talked the whole time we were doing book club. And I realized one day when he was making bracelets that if his hands were busy, his mouth was shut. So think about those kind of things too. Let them color, let them write, let them doodle. It gets them involved in the lesson or in the story time, and they'll probably be better behaved and better understand what you're doing. And then think about the format of different kinds of things that you have in your library, whether it's a public or school library. Do you have multiple languages, and are they easy to find? What happens when they come to the circulation desk? If they speak a different language, is there anybody at the desk who can speak that language? Perhaps we could learn some different languages and have some library lingo. There's probably somebody in your district or in your community who also speaks that language. Let them, perhaps as a parent, translate some key phrases like, do you have your library card with you? Or whose class are you in? Do you want to renew your book? Signage is an easy, no-brainer thing to help people feel welcome. There was a librarian I met recently in New York, and she had gone to Europe on vacation to a small little country, but she learned their language. When she came home, enough to get by. When she came home that fall, she learned that a kid from that country was coming to her school. So on the day the kid was to arrive at school, she was in the front office greeting him in his language. Can you imagine how special that child felt? You know how scared he probably was? And that librarian took time out from her day to be there and greet him in his language. That's why we do this. And last but not least, we've got to strengthen our marketing. If you have all these wonderful programs and great books and all those kinds of things, if nobody knows that you do it, that's just not good. So what can we do? Of course, we make all kinds of displays and we make all kinds of lists. So think about them as you are promoting the things that you're doing. You can go to Pinterest and you can find all kinds of examples of bulletin boards and book displays. Use props and things to make them, more Barnes & Noble, kind of interesting. And then be sure that you're using social media and other tools, technology to toot your horn. So, for example, if you make a display, tweet it out. Put it on Instagram. If you're trying to reach kids, you got to use what they use. So use Twitter, use Snapchat, use Instagram. You get a new book in, you take a picture, you send it out. Who wants to be first? If you're trying to reach parents, sorry to say, that's the old people on Facebook. Yeah, I know. I'm one of those. So when you find resources, like you find an article like the Teen Sentence to Read Diverse Books, send that out to your parents. Or make some tutorials so that people know the resources that you have. So, for example, this is a little video tutorial I made from World Book, and what it does is it illustrates a couple of things. One, that the World Book article can be translated into lots of different languages, and that it can be read to you. How many of your patrons or students even know that, that those features exist. So make some tutorials so people can help themselves. As we kind of wrap this up, let's pause for just a moment and think about what you need to do. Maybe you need to evaluate your collection. Maybe you need to go back and look at your programming and see if it leans one way or the other. Maybe you need to start investigating who can come to your library and do a presentation. Maybe you're doing a makerspace and the wrong people are coming, or nobody's coming at all. I've met a librarian who decided to do a makerspace at her high school, and she said the only people that were coming were her special needs kids. And I said, I'm not making the connection here. And she said, all my other kids are in some sort of club or they work or something like that, but my special need kids were the ones who wanted to do makerspace. So look around at your school. Who's not doing things? In fact, she even went to one of the kids in the special needs class because one of the kids did origami, and she asked him to lead the special needs class in origami. So think how special that child must feel. The leader in a special needs class, and people are going to learn from me. So there are all kinds of things like that that you can do. In your handout, you'll see links to other programming, other books, other ways to support ELLs and other diverse groups. But in the end, as we plan for diversity, whether it's race, culture, ability, gender, religion, in the end what you say is that your guests, your patrons, they matter. The library is one of the few places where everyone is welcome. And so by adding variety to your material selection, emphasizing culture throughout the year, and marketing your resources, it builds a trust. Sure, diversity is a hot thing right now. Inclusion is incredibly important, but we don't want to do it because everybody else is doing it. In the end, we want to do it because it's about them. It's not about us. Next month, in addition to webcast about upcoming selections, JLG is going to continue to give you a new kind of webcast. These short professional development webcasts are designed to give you strategies and resources and programming, ideas that you can use even tomorrow. So mark your calendar for March 9th at 3 o'clock Eastern as we talk about women who rock today and yesterday. So we're going to talk about women during Women's History Month, but we're going to talk about how we can celebrate the power of women all year.
And join us for our next book selections webcast. That's February 23rd at 3 o'clock, The Buzz on New Teen Books. JLG's Kaylee Hanlon will join Deborah as they talk about the hot new books for teens and free resources you can use with them. Also, check out our webcast on the website. After this, there'll be a blog post that recaps everything we went through. You'll find a list of all the books with links to the book detail pages and some other resources. And thanks to Deborah for a peek into improving our library programming. Deborah is, she wants you to know, available for professional development workshops just like these. Please contact her if your district or library system is interested in booking an event for summer or fall. Thanks to you, our listeners, for joining us today. You can let us know how you use the webcast information. We'd love to hear from you. And be sure to ask your account rep about all our categories and services. Contact your sales department for more information. Tomorrow you'll receive an automatic email regarding today's webinar. If you follow the link, you can watch the archived webinar and print your certificate of attendance after 10 minutes of viewing. Until next time, thanks again for joining us. And remember, it's about them.